Hey, you guys, welcome back. This morning, we are going to have a series of one-on-one conversations about the upcoming Paradigm Pivots, a night of educational entertainment. And this is the Park City Library Speaker Series. And this morning, the first conversation that we have lined up is about a book called Don't Pull the Chicken Switch, about willpower, and we are here with Parkite and its author, Kit Allowitz. Good morning, brother. How are you?
Morning, Terry. Nice to be here.
Good to see you. Tell me about, before we get specifically to this book, tell me about being a writer, because that's something I'm always fascinated by. People from time to time will say, Terry, you should be a writer, and I say, you know, I would love that, except that it involves writing.
I had some of those same barriers.
Did you?
Right? It was on my to-do list for a long time. In fact, I carried around a folder for almost a decade.
Wow.
The title of the manila folder was Don't Pull the Chicken Switch, and I collected stories of where I was chickening out or I saw other people chickening out. And finally, after a decade, decided I've got to get this done.
That's crazy.
And so I went to work, and it took me about a year to really get it all put together, and here's the finished product.
Ladies and gentlemen, there it is in print. Congratulations for that. Talk about the writing process. Once you got really vectored on it, then did it become, I'm going to guess that you went, oh wow, this isn't so bad, as no matter how the input was, that you went, oh, I've got all this in my head, I'm ready to put it out.
Yeah, the writing process wasn't too bad. I found that I could get in the zone and really write and write and write. What I then discovered, or had the harsh realization, is that the writing something that people want to read is much more difficult.
Step two.
Yes. If you can believe it, my original draft was something like 155,000 words.
Okay.
And I had to shrink that down to under 100,000 words to get it to a book that is readable.
Yeah, manageable, and attention span for us, as our attention spans shorten always nowadays. Yeah. So tell me about the premise, Don't Pull the Chicken Switch. Talk about willpower and talk about your journey, as well as the chronicler aspect of things you listened to and took notes about in preparing to write the book.
Yeah. Well, I first heard the term Don't Pull the Chicken Switch nearly 2 decades ago. And it's actually a term they use in the Air Force. Jet fighter flying pilots, it's the ejection cord inside the cockpit of an F-16 plane.
Okay.
And pilots are, they go through all sorts of training to learn to not pull the chicken switch, to use the ejection as the last resort.
Absolutely.
And sometimes they need to do it, but oftentimes, in fact, according to Boeing, some 80% of aircraft accidents, they're pilot error, they're not mechanical error. And so it's really, in the human experience, it's when we get caught in the moment, caught in the plethora of the conundrums of all the things coming at us. We can make errors of cognition, errors of where we are, what we think's going on, and so we can chicken out just like fighter pilots can in that moment of choice. And so as I've gone throughout my life, I pull the chicken switch more than I want to. And so I decided, hey, listen, a book about how do we get our arms around this? How can I, myself, my own journey of making better choices financially, personally, spiritually, mentally, physically, professionally, interpersonally, how can I get my arms around that? And so that was the formation of the book. And the premise is that all of us have willpower, and all of us can grow that willpower by working on it and being committed to the idea of discipline. And really the essence of the book, beyond the idea of willpower, is discipline. And discipline, I love the definition of discipline, and it is simply this. If you understand the framework and you follow the process, you'll get better results. And discipline is the ability to follow through on a commitment that you've made after the emotion of making that commitment has passed. And so I find in my own life, I have been guilty many times of making a commitment, whether it's a simple thing like being nice to my neighbor, or a more difficult one like getting a project done at work, and then the hard part starts. How can I follow through after I make that commitment when the going gets tough, when all this stuff comes at you. So that's what I'm trying to get better at, and that's what this book is about.
Fantastic. It occurs to me that one of the things that I work on a lot in my life is kind of this balancing of emotion and intellect. And it occurs to me that emotion can be a great driver of that moment to make a commitment to say, yes, I'm going to do that. And it's that intellect that allows you that framework to be able to build discipline that will help your emotion, but emotions can change, whereas that framework is the thing that you need to continue onward for that concerted effort over time to get to whatever your goal is.
You bring up a great point, and emotion is a huge part of this. And another thing, right? Right, we're all emotional creatures.
Absolutely.
And what's crazy is that it's easy to sign up for something, whatever it is.
Yes.
In the moment, and because it's easy for us to make those promises right now. What's hard is when it shows up, they actually have to do something about it.
Yes.
And you could probably put two buckets. There's shoulds and wants. There's things that we should do, like I know I should further my education.
Yes.
And then there's these lists of wants, like I want to feel comfortable. And what's hard is that the brain often wants to pursue those wants, because the wants is where the body then releases things like dopamine, serotonin. Those are all really attractive body chemicals
Absolutely.
that the brain thrives on. Whereas the shoulds don't always show up to release some of those things. But the shoulds are the things that get us closer to what it is we say we want. And a want, while it may be attractive, doesn't usually get us where we want in the long run.
I recently heard a quote or a concept that was attributed to Will Smith. Who knows exactly whether or not the internet is telling me the truth on that, but I really loved the imagery of the idea that fear is not real. Danger is real, but fear is purely a construct of the human mind, and I'm going to go ahead and presume that that's the emotional side of the human mind.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how that reality, when you say don't pull the chicken switch, and yet we're all wired as advanced beings, as human beings, to give fear a lot of credence in our thinking, especially the quiet thinking that goes on that's not about the way that you behave to other people or the way that you interact with other people, but that little record that's playing in the back of your head. Talk about how you move forward beyond that reality.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I love that part about Will Smith too. The little clip I saw, I think it was something to do with jumping out of an airplane.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, and that's a fear for a lot of people. And now I've only tried skydiving twice, and it is
good. One's for you and one's for me.
There we go, right? And it is in huge amounts of fear until that moment you actually jump. As soon as you jump, it's incredible how the fear just completely leaves. And in Don't Pull the Chicken Switch, the idea behind this is there's a sequential process you can follow to reduce some of that fear. Now, the steps in the process begin with desire. I'm a big advocate of you've got to do some early assessment of your desire. Let's take skydiving. If your desire isn't high to skydive, then the pulling the chicken switch is probably going to show up much more easily if you're faced with that condition where your friend, challenges you to jump, or your kid wants to go jump and you're too scared to. So if your desire, on a scale of 1 to 10, I like to, when I work with people or through people, I like to start with this scale of 1 to 10. And I ask them, all right, so whatever it is you're going after, what's your desire to want to do this? And if I get an answer somewhere between 1 and 7, for me, that's a yellow light. Now, yellow light's not a deal stopper, but a yellow light is, all right, let's make sure that maybe you really want to do skydive before we go to the next step. Now, if I get answers 8, 9, or 10, to me, that's a pretty strong desire. So then we can move to the next step, which is you got to get knowledge. And knowledge can oftentimes reduce fear, whether you're skydiving or taking on a new project, or let's say you want to run a marathon or have a difficult conversation with a work colleague. If your desire's high, then you combine that with knowledge, then knowledge creates awareness, awareness creates choice, And after you have choice, then you can make a commitment. I'm going to skydive, or I'm going to have that difficult conversation. And after you make a commitment, then you've got to practice it. You've got to put it into play. And then the last thing I like to share with people in the process would be, sometimes it's good to have some accountability. Whether you're going to skydive or let's say you're going to run a marathon, having an accountability partner can oftentimes help you follow through on your commitment after the emotion making that commitment is passed and get it done and not chicken out.
It's great stuff, man. I'm stoked. I felt good this morning. I feel better now. So give us the details. You're going to be speaking and all of the times and all of that sort of thing for the speaker series.
Yes, we're speaking November 27th at the library. It's going to start at 5 o'clock. I'm joining 4 other colleagues that also have very fascinating topics that'll be on the show this morning, I think, as well.
Yes.
And we're excited to present this to the community to help all of us look at how we see the world. Paradigms are our mental models for how we see the world. So come and join us, and we are promising a rewarding evening around how you see the world and to maybe shift it, because when we take time to look at the way we see our world, oftentimes the way we see things changes, and that's what we're going for.
And you won't be so concerned about keeping an eye on the chicken switch.
Yes.
Fantastic. Tell folks where they can find out more information about you, about the book, etc., online, social media.
Yeah, thank you. I try to be very active on social media. The easiest way to get a hard copy of the book is you can go to Amazon.com and order a copy. You can also get on Audible. If you can believe it, I recorded myself.
Oh, good for you. That's
Yes,
great, man.
Which was also equally as challenging as writing the book. But you can get it on Audible, you can get it on YouTube, on Apple, on iTunes. I have an active YouTube channel. Go and check me out on KitAllowitz.com. You can see hundreds of videos relating to don't pull the chicken switch.
Fantastic. Kit, great to meet you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work that you've done, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Terry, I brought you a copy of the book. I'd like to
Excellent,
give you
my friend.
a copy of that as well.
I sure appreciate that.
Thank you.
KitAllowitz.com. Make sure to go and find out more about Don't Pull the Chicken Switch. And of course, on the 27th, he will be one of the featured speakers at the Park City Library Speaker Series. More to come. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.